Good afternoon, my people. I hope you all are having a very great evening. Yes, I do. A great evening. Friday evening. I'm listening to some Tropicales music. I do not own the rights to this music. It is by the Chiquito Team Band, Medley Bachata, a single from 2020, Afro-Latin. Last time in our reading, I left off at talking about the literature that the author wants to talk about. And I'm still reading Edward Shils, Color and the Afro-Asian Intellectual. So we're getting into the literature. Okay, let's get started here. Literature has not the common institutional, largely academic foundation, nor the compact, systematically unfolding tradition of the academically cultivated branches of science and scholarship. The diversity and lack of connection among traditions are greater. Nevertheless, the novel in both English-speaking and French-speaking Africa is and must be viewed in the larger context of the English and French literary traditions. Independent oral and written literary traditions enter into the creative work of Asian and African prose writers, but the great European models toward which the novelists outside Europe orient themselves help to form and guide the work of novelists in the Asian and African countries. Poetic creation shows these latter characteristics to an even greater extent. Shakespeare, Hugo, Yeats, T.S. Eliot, and Rimbaud are influences all over the world and create a sense of unity among poets. The worldwide intellectual community is neither dense, continuous, nor highly organized. Its coverage is very imperfect. And as I turn the page, and it does not have a complete consensus. Nonetheless, members of the various communities in the major areas of intellectual life evaluate intellectual performance with little or no reference to nationality, religion, race, political party, or class. An African novelist wants to be judged as a novelist, not as an African. A Japanese mathematician would regard it as an affront if an analysis of his accomplishment referred to his pigmentation. A British physicist would find it ridiculous if a judgment of his research referred to his being white. Every community has a center in which its highest values are symbolized and represented, from which authority is exercised on behalf of these values and to which deference is given. Intellectual communities are no different from primordial communities and communities of religious belief in this regard. The centers of the modern intellectual communities are largely in the West, in the United Kingdom, Western Europe, and North America. The Soviet Union has recently become more of a center than Tsarist Russia was, except in literature, and Japan is beginning to become one. These two newer centers are handicapped because their languages are not so widely known outside their borders as those of the Western European and North American centers. They have also come forward more recently, and they have not entered so much into the modern cultures of Asia and Africa as have the older centers. The metropolitan cultures are still the centers for much of the modern intellectual life of the new states for such obvious reasons as the facility offered through the language introduced by the former ruler and the relatively low cultural productivity and modern works of the new states. The increased demands for intellectual products in the new states, books, periodicals, services of intellectual institutions, results of research and scientific surveys have placed a burden on local or indigenous intellectual powers which they cannot yet accommodate. The result is dependence on the most easily available source, which is in most cases except Indonesia. The culture of the former ruler. Pride, realism, and the competition of the great powers in seeking the approval of the new states have altered the pattern somewhat, but not fundamentally. Okay, I'm going to stop right there, and we will be back to read where it will start off talking about the institutional structure and how it was organized. See, this book right here, this book is not, it's not like one of those easy books to read. You have to really listen, and you have to really get into it while you're reading it. Most people won't touch it. They won't, I mean, if you want to, it's not an easy, fun type book. It's very informative, and it's got a lot of things, a lot of meat in it. But you really have to sit down and understand it and listen to it as I'm reading it. So, I thank all those that are coming in. And I want you to have a blacktastic day.